welcome to the pod, Rockstar Dev. Uncle Rockstar, I don't know if you prefer one or the other.
Hey, however, thank you for inviting me, Isabel, and yeah, it will be a pleasure to talk about variety of subjects.
A variety of subjects. It's interesting because, this podcast kind of focuses on, I would say, I call it the deluge of new tech on Bitcoin in a post-Ordinals world, right? Say what you will about Ordinals, but it's pretty clear that after the launch of Ordinals, there was a lot of new interest in developing new technologies. A lot of investment came into the space, for better, for worse. Complicated subject that maybe we will get into. But this week is really Lightning Week. I interviewed Nifty a couple days ago. Probably going to have on a couple other Lightning-focused folks over the next few days. She's the best.
Sure.
She actually is my first repeat guest on the show. I've had her on now twice.
Okay, now I have a goal. Okay, one more goal.
Exactly. But I thought you'd be an interesting guest to follow her because you are pretty different foil in terms of just sort of branding and how you approach the industry. You're definitely sort of a personality on Twitter. At least the Bitcoin Maximalist watching this will likely know you and know that about you. And last night when we were prepping for this interview, we kind of started thinking about, okay, what angle do we want to take on Lightning? But the conversation sort of quickly evolved to what it means to be working in Lightning and working in Bitcoin and kind of, how you came into the industry, how you went from being, a self-described pleb, just posting on Reddit boards, to being now pretty well-respected developer, one of the leading developers at Strike, major contributor to BTCPay Server. And so I thought it'd be interesting for folks who may relate to that, right? Or be interested in that journey.
Yeah.
I know I am. To start with your story a little bit and sort of how you went from being just a tweet poster to working in the industry.
Yeah, well, it all started during Blocksize wars, where...
So this is like 2017.
Yeah, 2017, because...
how long were you in Bitcoin before that?
Like 5 years actively, and then as a cypherpunk, I've been following development. Since the beginning, like crypto.
But just as like a citizen, not as a...
Yeah, it's more... I was not sure Bitcoin will be successful. Like I was one of those people that the government, it won't ban Bitcoin, but it will sabotage Bitcoin.
Right.
It should be obvious to them that in the long run, Bitcoin is defunding the cancer that state funding is. It
shuts down their business, basically.
Well, it's more state has this problem of having monopoly on violence, right? And then we are at the level of complexity where state, especially like big state, federal or states in federal state in the US, like it's not efficient system, but it gets out of its own inefficiencies by printing more money instead of solving problems. And now, people come in and they're like, okay, now the big thing is Doge is going to solve government inefficiency. In the long run, Bitcoin will solve that inefficiency by enforcing fiscal discipline on states. Like you won't be able to print money to get out of the problems, but you basically need to recognize that you have failed. And then once you recognize that you failed, that's the opportunity to try a different way or for someone else to step in. And governments can do that. So again, as you can tell from my passion in telling this, I've been following Bitcoin since the beginning, and I immediately understood it because also growing up, I grew up in hyperinflation. So, and then a lot of my young adult life, I've struggled to come to terms, like what was the point? But then when Bitcoin happened, I was like, okay, like this is it, because I have practical PhD on inflation. Bitcoin solves it. But then, I spent several years, and I think a lot of people that become Bitcoiners do the same thing. They like doubt Bitcoin from different perspectives. So mine was take. And then as we like started crossing those milestones, like $100, $200, and drops down. Once it got to $1,000, I couldn't believe. And then I saw that members of Senate in U.S. they were buying Bitcoin, and that was the moment like
You
where,
saw this?
well, I was following it as it was happening.
But how'd you know that members of Senate and government, were they publicly doing this at the time? Oh, I didn't realize.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then
In 2017.
and then you're plugged into what you're saying, like the whole Reddit, Bitcoin talk, we're exchanging information, all of that, and
Yeah, Twitter, it wasn't really a thing then. It was
no, Twitter really then becomes like 2017, 2018. One of the things I always bring up, it's hilarious. But I don't know if now Matt Odell like deleted all his posts, like if it's not available, if Elon resurrected. But one of my favorite hobbies was go back to 2016, 17 when you have Odell posting and he gets like 1 like. So that's yeah, he's like yelling at some people like, oh, you should do this. He gets like 1 like.
He was basically a pleb at that point.
Well, yeah, we all were. And then for me, it was BTCPay Server. Block size wars happen. It's extremely frustrating. We're arguing on Reddit, Bitcoin talk.
Was it just like sort of this PvP vibes?
Yes,
Whole Bitcoin.
Bitcoin Cash. Then happens the split. Craig Wright channels all that energy into his persona. Then, you know, him, Roger, and Calvin are cheering on. Jihan loses hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin, propping up Bitcoin Cash. It's craziness. And then I see all that craziness, and I'm a type of a guy that likes consensus and likes doing productive stuff, like all of us. So I see, like, okay, this is completely unproductive. I feel terrible for participating in this discourse. What is it that I can do more productively? And in 2017, I start looking around, and there is this single developer, Nicholas Dorier, who once Bitpay posted that they're upgrading all their merchants to Bitcore, and that merchants should prepare for that. He sees it for what it is, that they were basically changing what Bitcoin is for tens of thousands of merchants they had on their platform. They were switching them to Segwit 2x.
Were people at that point, I mean, how much were people talking about medium of exchange versus store of value and having that conversation? How much were people even talking about payments protocols at that time?
It was a huge thing because up to that point, we all talk about on-chain Bitcoin as the payments, right? And BitPay is proving business model because they have tens of thousands of merchants, some of which Nicholas has onboarded. Like he was one of the biggest proponents of BitPay. But then what happens is BitPay uses all that power to try to change Bitcoin.
So at that time, I mean, onboarding merchants, I mean, it must have been like a relatively small number of people. I mean, was there any competitors for Bitcoin Pay Server, or were there any other companies providing merchant services for Bitcoin payments?
So BitPay ended up being like the main service provider for payments, BitPay. And they had like tens of thousands of merchants.
And that was Lightning? That was a...
No,
it wasn't
like Lightning.
On-chain layer 1.
On-chain layer 1.
Was it expensive? Like, how did this interact with the block size wars?
Well, that's one of the causes of block size wars, because fees are steadily rising as blocks are filling up.
I see.
And then you have...
so the meta of payments basically is spurring on the block size war, because now there's more activity on chain.
Yes, and blocks are filling up, and this is where like Gavin Andreessen, eventually like Mike Hearn, all of these guys, Jeff Garzik, these were Bitcoin core developers that are representing that stance of Bitcoin on-chain as medium of exchange. Like, and then the solution is increase block size.
So Bitcoin Cash was sort of really ultimately proposed as a solution for payments, right?
Yes.
To make Bitcoin more accessible as a medium of exchange payments network.
Yes, Jihan went all in with that. Roger Beer as well. And what eventually proven true is like market has decided like where the hash rate goes, like decides what really Bitcoin is.
Were the people who were arguing the other side of the coin,
Yeah.
to not do big blocks, basically, were they mostly store of value maxis? Like, did they care about payments?
Well, they were more, the way that I see it, it's like it's a coalition of developers, Bitcoin users, advocates for decentralization. Definitely not big firms, because big firms, Coinbase was on board as well. Like, this is where the so-called compromise ended up being SegWit 2x, which was SegWit activation and then blocks double in size.
Which basically means you're moving, like you're moving anything that isn't sort of like immediately necessary for like account values into the witness. You're creating a witness.
Witness is there anyway, but the blocks go to, in most extreme cases, 8 megabytes. With SegWit activation was already increase of block size.
So this is, this is good because some people might not know this.
Oh.
Can you explain especially the folks who are coming in maybe not from kind of Bitcoin Maxi land or Lightning land? Can you explain what the SegWit upgrade was, which you call a compromise in the block size wars?
Well, I call SegWit 2x compromise. Like they were trying, for, because there's this New York agreement. How to best present it as a developer? Like, I should be historian, I should be Rizzo. But the whole point is blocks are filling up. This starts happening 2015, 2016. Trend is obvious. As these big companies as companies are growing, think of 2013. This is where BitPay doesn't exist. There is BitInstant, Charlie Shrimp in New York with Winklevoss. We all know how that ends. But, Winklevoss, they started an exchange. Brian Armstrong, who had like flip on desk at first Bitcoin conference, 2013. Coinbase is now growing. BitPay is growing. And blocks are filling up. So SegWit becomes this compromise where, this non-critical witness data will be segregated. And then as part of that, you will switch from block size in bytes, kilobytes, megabytes, whatever. You will switch to block weight, where certain transaction, depending on how it's constructed, it has different weight. And then that becomes really a limit on how big one block can be. But to simplify it for our dear viewers, what happens is this camp, again, of cypherpunks, enthusiasts, they mostly are represented by like Greg Maxwell, Adam Back, Nicholas Dorier. Luke Dash Jr. wanted like block size decrease. He wants it for last decade plus. But it's all people that want to do like, hey, average person, wherever in the world, they need to be able to run a node. They're like, we are going with SegWit just activation. That's it. You're already getting a block size increase because in extreme cases, blocks can be 4 megabytes, right? And on the other side, you have this group of companies that are growing in power that now have a bunch of users. Then they need like, okay, we will do that, but let's get a compromise where it's not 4 megabytes, like it's 8. So it's SegWit 2x. And what happens is they keep pushing this while now increasingly number of people is rejecting it because they want to ensure that Bitcoin stays decentralized. Because with this growth, you end up having way more space. You need more powerful computers. to process the blocks and all of that. So
the mining industry is also growing.
mining industry, yeah,
changing.
It's changing, but the point is, it becomes this big contentious thing, and now it's like August 8th. Oh, August, I remember, like it's around beginning of August. There is a point in time where SegWit 2x like is dead. All the companies, like more than 90% of miners were signaling for SegWit 2x. But when the moment came to like really activate it and use it, all the users won. Like all the, like as they called it, small blockers won, because it was about, hey, Bitcoin is really a consensus mechanism, and the demand for space in blocks is infinite. Like if you really want to go down that rabbit hole or everything, like you can go
forever.
It goes forever. Like you will hit a limit here.
Right. Unless you want to keep expanding block size infinitely and play that game forever, it's,
So it's like, let's go on higher layers, which is where Lightning starts coming in.
So but 2016, this is 2015.
2017.
That's when people start talking about the second layer concept.
Yes.
And Lightning was really the first serious contender in that conversation.
Yes.
As far as I remember.
Todd Draja, Joseph Poon, I think.
That's right.
And then Elizabeth Stark really joins that effort, and yeah, she's our Lightning rock star. Me and Elizabeth, we have a band, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, she definitely represents. Yeah.
Elizabeth Stark and Rockstar Dev, Uncle Rockstar.
Yeah, but what happens for me, like to finish that thread, is 2017, BitPay just raises $60 million. One of the investors was Bitmain, Jihan's miners. And they fully go in like SegWit 2x, let's switch all our merchants. And that's where Nicholas Dorier goes when he reads the blog post they posted. He says, like, this is lies. My trust in you is broken. I will make you obsolete. Which you find hilarious. There is this company with $60 million just raised, and there is a single developer saying that he will obsolete them. So I love that. I just saw the great work he was doing. So, and we knew each other from some other websites, like where you all like write technical articles. So I messaged him like, hey man, but let's do something together. Like I'll be +1 if you need coding or around. Yeah.
Do you think it was easier back then on the Reddit forums and Bitcoin forum? Like, do you think it was easier to like connect with?
Absolutely. I mean,
it was.
I mean, if you even go back, I was yesterday with David Bailey, where he talked about 2013 imagine like being at the conference where you're like setting up the table, and next to you is Brian Armstrong,
casually,
like Coinbase, and he's trying to onboard people like, hey, use this wallet. And then you have Winklevosses with Charlie Shrem and
just hanging out.
Yes, and you have Bitpay, who really like it. Bitpay is still around, and it is not well known, but like one of the reasons why they're still around is because they were one of the first companies to really like put that Bitcoin on balance sheet strategy into play. Because if you believe in Bitcoin truly, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is. There's so many crazy companies in Bitcoin that like stay for decades now, like decade plus, and they will be here for decades because they just ride that wave of Bitcoin price going up.
I mean, yeah, right. I think that there's a lot of folks in this industry in that boat for sure.
No.
So interesting. So BTCPay Server, which is an open source merchants sort of payments SaaS product, pretty much, right? I mean, it's sort of
like you become your own payment processor, and then no one can define what Bitcoin is for you. You always get like, I'm going to run this.
Was it the first payment solution for merchants that used Lightning, or did you have other competitors when BTCPay Server was?
Well, that's a good question, actually, but I don't. One of the reasons I'm the developer that integrated Lightning into BTCPay Server, because that's one of the reasons.
It wasn't using Lightning before you came on?
Well, the thing is, Lightning is still being developed. So Lightning Labs is just launching LND.
When did it become live? When did Lightning become functional? Is useful?
I mean, it's really like 2018, 2019. 2019 already is that moment of a big explosion, because you now have this wave of Lightning. The same way in 2013 you had, you go to that conference and it's, Brian Armstrong with a prop-up desk and whatnot. 2019, there was this great conference in Berlin. Yeah, shout out to FOMO. So FOMO Lightning. Elizabeth Stark also helped organize that conference. Like, she was really the one inviting us speakers. She invited amazing group of people. And this is where, for example, 2019, with the whole Zap team that became Strike, we're all like sitting at the conference and talking with people. Jack Mallers, he's now like on the uptrend because he gave some like good speeches, but he's there as a attendee,
hanging out.
Yeah, and like Miles from Cash App, he's still at the conference. He's good, but it's Elizabeth Stark, Ryan Gentry.
So 2019 was really when Lightning was kind of on the up.
That's where it's like, okay, it's on. And
then the whole cycle, 2021 cycle, like most like Bitcoiners in the Bitcoin community were very focused on Lightning as the L2, as the payments protocol.
What's happening really, and yeah, I would love if we leave some links for people as part of the episode, because it's super exciting times. From 2019, like July 1st to 2019, always remember the date. This is where Mallers pitched me on, like, Ankh, please help me like turn this Zap open source project into for-profit startup. I joined, and it was an amazing team already. Otto, Ole, Dylan is a fantastic guy. Tom, Korhal, Namson, Raf. So there's already like iOS developer, Android developer, web developer, like, and then we have Namson, who's for design with all that. Like, it's amazing nucleus of a team. And then 2019 we start, like I joined that. Of course, on Twitter, people are like, okay, Rockstar sold out. He's now working on custodial Lightning. God forbid.
Yeah.
Custodial Lightning. He should be working on open source. This is closed source. This and that.
The ideology comes out.
But what happens then 2019, and already by September, October, we had a demo, like MVP. And then 2020 was, middle of 2020 was launching. What was it? Strike, maybe 0.9, but it was like 1.0. And then 2021, this is a moment that probably now like everyone in Bitcoin remembers, when it's Bitcoin conference and Maller's on a stage announcing legal tender. And as someone
for El Salvador.
Yeah. And then Bukele joins on video game. The thing for me was,
what a moment.
Especially as someone that was building the technology for this and then been in a backstage as a final prep.
Well, because El Salvador really needed Lightning. I mean, if you are going to have a country have Bitcoin as legal tender, payments become non-optional anymore. Like, now you need like payment systems that work nationally in your country.
Yeah, but look at that. Like, now we fully understand that. Back then, it was such a
new idea.
Yeah, in a moment, and you're manifesting something into reality.
And I imagine, I mean, I was basically getting my Bitcoin education on YouTube at that time, but I wasn't particularly deep in the tech. I was more in the number go up macroeconomics education portion of my journey at that time. But I imagine that was a moment where you saw an explosion of new Lightning companies, right? Like, all the Lightning companies that exist were kind of in the process of being born around that 2021, 2022 time.
Yeah, it's people see that, and they see the impact that they can have, and because now it's not that Bitcoin is changing an individual or a company, or like it's changing a country.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, now this is serious. But I think in journey of every Bitcoiner, there are those moments. Because for me, it was even back, okay, we're on Reddit talking about, hey, this senator just disclosed that he has Bitcoin.
President Trump. Now look where we are.
Now we have President Trump simping for Bitcoin, and they're like, hey guys, give me more money.
I never thought that. I even despite potentially, you know, mixed incentives on his part, I never thought that. It is shocking to me that as quickly as it happened that we had a president talking about Bitcoin.
I think Democrats really accelerated it.
Yeah, they dropped the ball. Yeah.
They, you know, I go and I say,
Elizabeth Warren really actually is the person we must credit for.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Elizabeth Warren, for getting Trump interested in Bitcoin and wanting to oppose you. We welcome that. Yeah.
I say, like, Bitcoin, from my perspective, Bitcoin decided elections, you know, and then it's the whole now narrative will be about how much was it crypto at Bitcoin, because crypto companies were giving tons of money. But I also see, like, all these crypto companies, they're started by people who are Bitcoiners. It's just that things changed for them. And the thing definitely is, like, to me, Bitcoin decided elections, and this is a signal, especially for next presidential elections. Both candidates will be for Bitcoin, because if you're a politician, you can now see if you go with Bitcoin, you will win. You will be funded. You will be supported, because you are supporting a system that is better. And if you go against it, like, you will lose. So even if people that don't agree with me that Bitcoin decided elections for Trump, like, they can say, if I say, Kamala lost because of Bitcoin and the whole choke point 2.0, and they're like, well, yeah, okay. Like, Democrats lost in large part thanks to their opposition to this, like, advancement that we're all part of.
100%. I do want to dig in. Actually, I think this is going to be like a whole new thread for this conversation. I want to dig into a little bit about Bitcoin versus crypto. And I specifically want to start with talking about VCs. So my curiosity, as you were speaking about the sort of explosion of new lightning companies coming onto the scene, was how did venture capital respond? You know, what was it like raising money in that environment? Because at this time also, the parallel in the crypto world was 2017 ICO boom. VCs are getting rich on token drops, right? A very different model than investing in what really are like true brick and mortar businesses. That, like, you know, you get equity, right? Like, maybe you'll get paid in 10 years, but you're not going to get, you know, 2-year liquidity tokens that you can dump, right?
Well, if you're Chamath, then you get it. Or Jason.
Not for lightning product, right?
No, not for lightning.
This is the key point, is that, you know, so there's this sort of lightning boom happening kind of next to this ICO boom. You know, was it challenging to raise? I mean, what were the differences in raising money in those two things? I mean, if you're competing with venture attention from people who are getting token liquidity incentives.
I mean, that's one of the things with Bitcoin that's scary for a lot of people. Like, if you just buy Bitcoin and hold it, you're going to outperform a lot of people, and professional VCs as well. There are VCs. I now talk with a lot of VCs that are just like, what have I done with my life?
Like,
you know,
why did I even?
Why did I? Yeah, I do see, like, Bitcoin VCs as somewhat of, you know, our real angels, altruists, because
Charity.
if they kept their Bitcoin, didn't invest in companies, they would, 90% of them maybe will, like, outperform. Yeah, well, they're already rich. So the thing is, what with Strike, I wasn't directly involved with fundraising, but I was there, when needed, talking with this VC, proposing strategy, how it goes. But at Strike, we were really lucky that our seed round was done by this amazing guy named Bob, who joined from Greenox.
Okay.
And I was like, Bob, what are you doing, man? Like, you could be a VC, Greenox. It's a nice job. What ended up happening is just guy who loves to build. So he joined, and then at all in total, Strike raised $90 million in total, like across all the Series A, Series
Wow.
B.
For a Bitcoin only company, that is insane.
Well, I mean, there is a method to madness, but what happened, like, you have other Bitcoin companies that have raised significant funds, and this is where you really see a rise of Bitcoin only VCs like 1031, because in large part of there was ICO craze, there is a crypto craze, there are like all these crazes, and then after that, people, like 99% of people, just lose all their money. When you look at the returns of crypto funds, it's crazy bad. And there are still all these blockchain, not Bitcoin plays. Oh, we're gonna issue a token. Oh, it's all, at the end of the day, what I like to say, it's a zero-sum game. There is no genuine innovation happening. So as long as there is a hype wave, there will be growth. But for real growth, you need to have genuine innovation, like Lightning is. Now people are like, oh, Lightning has this, downside, it has this con. Yeah, sure. But Lightning has this ability to settle instantly across, a world. Cool. Name comparable technology where you're settling value. Like you can't.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, there's ACH, there are like wires. It's not instant. It's all some kind of ledger, and
Well, and permissionless exit, right? Like unilateral exit, I think, is like the important addition to that, right? So it's like you could theoretically say you have instant settlement on various shitcoin chains, but like, can you get back to Bitcoin permissionlessly and trustlessly is, another separate question.
Exactly, because we all see that our institutions that are like this legacy technology that is supposed to help settle, help facilitate commerce, it's overwhelmed. So you're gonna sue someone in court and wait for 5 years to get your money, and then lawyers are gonna win like 90% of it. No, I could just open a Lightning channel. So that's where more and more VCs just and even now they're like picking up still, because there's tons of money to burn. What still keeps, in my view, like crypto industry going is the fact that you have what were originally Bitcoin plays, like Coinbase. Whoever invested in Coinbase early on, like, yeah, enjoy your life. And then you have these, also hybrid plays like Robinhood that are now doing really, really well.
Yeah.
But they're leveraging more and more of that. Like, okay, sprinkle a little bit of Bitcoin, or they go like, oh, we don't care about Bitcoin. Like, okay, but crypto, sprinkle a little crypto, and you have a very interesting mix. Now you can send money across borders. Now, you're in the news, you're cool. While Sailor is doing the whole Bitcoin on balance sheet, you're part of that wave. So I think that's really what keeps crypto going, because undoubtedly there's like way more money in crypto than it is in Bitcoin still.
There's so much liquidity. It's just wild. And yeah, I mean, to your point, right? 99% of people lose, 1% win, but the 1% who win are typically VCs, right? Who are getting sort of really token allocated
Traders,
things like
and traders,
right.
like sharks, and then they're the ones also posting online, with it like watches or shoes or or whatever.
Ferrari.
Yeah, Ferraris. And then people see that and they're like, okay, I'm going to do this. It's like, no, you won't do that. You'll be exit liquidity, you know?
Right.
And yeah, I'm lucky to have the standing that I have in space because I then, in a lot of cases, I get offered like front row seats to see those journeys. And I tell people like, guys, don't do it. You know, yes, you will gain money very like on your pump and dump, but like, what's the point of you take from like 100 people who invested $1,000? Like, you take their money and then you give them excuses, and like, it's not good for your aura.
It's not good for your heart.
It's not good for your heart, and not good for your legal system. You saw with the whole Hawk Tua coin, how they got Haley into promoting a scam, and she's like, I didn't take that much money. They only paid me 120,000.
Poor girl.
Yeah, like those scammers took millions, and now she's the one stuck with SEC case and everything else. So yeah.
It does seem to be, people will often say like there's an ideological divide between sort of Bitcoin only, Bitcoin maximalists in the crypto world, but it seems like a broader ethical divide. And being ethical oftentimes in business means getting rich slowly, not quickly. How much does time preference?
Yeah, it's like a long-term game. Yeah, long-term games with long-term people. And I look at where I've had the most success, and it's, without exception, it's if I worked on something for the long term with right people, you know, and I've spent 4 years at Strike, and again, it turned from $0 into, a lot of dollars. And having then small part of that is like very impactful for your life. BTCPay Server, like, changed my life, continues changing my life. It's still the same team of people I'm working with for now. It will be 8 years. So it's about that. Like, can you find that setup? And for me also, it's been a journey. Like, I immigrated to US. I've spent decades of, I'm in this startup. We're like, we're going to do it. Then it fails. Oh, we're going to do it. Then it fails. But you need to keep iterating until you find long-term people with whom you can play long-term games. And you can then really have like long-term winnings. Because it happens, like, it just happens instantly. Like, that's the thing.
When it's right.
Yeah, when it's right. It's what part.
It's like finding a husband or a wife. That's what they say. That's what I hear.
So you hear, yeah. But it is that, like, gradually, then suddenly.
Gradually, then suddenly.
And I think that's what's going to happen with VCs as well. Is, it will. I think all the VCs eventually will be Bitcoin VCs. Well, they just look at the returns. And the people that are like in crypto and they're, okay, let's go money. Let's get money. Like, don't launch a token. Just buy Bitcoin. Like, follow Saylor, follow now with Trump, strategic reserve, all of that. Like, that's happening from my perspective, 100%. So, you want to make money, like, follow that play. And then you're good at marketing, promoting. It's like, okay, promote that you're doing that. You want more leverage, go with MicroStrategy, call options and all that market, and participate in that market rather than, I'm going to launch a blockchain. We are developing it for a year. And then on that blockchain, you will have the smart contracts. And then why do you waste time on all that?
And it feels a little bit like a spiritual journey, like the commitment to being purpose-driven first and kind of money second, right? Rather than like just chasing short-term gains, which ironically ends up burning people a lot of the time, right? So
yeah, it's short-term games short-term gains. That's how it is. But even if you're just chasing money, what's becoming obvious is like Bitcoin is the play.
Bitcoin is the play. Yeah.
Bitcoin is the
just
play.
buy and hold. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Stacks up.
this is, you want to trade again, like now you have one of the most volatile, crazy markets in MicroStrategy stock. That's trading, I think now it's like a 2.5x its Bitcoin holdings.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like that you have 2.x premium just because people can't directly access Bitcoin ETFs, to me is insane. As someone that also has benefited from MicroStrategy stock, because I initially bought it back when Bitcoin ETFs were launching.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't have access to Bitcoin ETFs because my broker decided to protect me, from volatility and all of that. Like those Bitcoin ETFs, they're pretty volatile. So you buy MicroStrategy.
There you go.
Thank you, to my broker. So now this thing starts ripping, and it even got to one point where it was like 3x its Bitcoin holdings.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, it's amazing. I've just the gains on MicroStrategy, particularly in the last year, have been insane.
Yeah, and then there is the whole options market that develops on top of MicroStrategy. So again, when someone is a trader, you want to trade. Don't go into whole like, oh, Trump did it even. We're gonna launch token. And it will be like freedom, liberty, money. Like, what are you guys doing? You don't want to get into, we're going to develop a blockchain, launch a coin, just buy Bitcoin. Oh, that's not volatile enough for you. Okay, buy MicroStrategy. Oh, that's not, buy options of MicroStrategy. And, scratch your itch.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, go towards better systems. That's really how I see it. And yeah.
What's your advice, kind of closing the loop on this, kind of story of how you got into going from being a community member to really being a professional on multiple levels in this industry? Like, what would you give as advice to somebody who maybe is sitting behind the keyboard, a lover, an enthusiast, but not yet working in the industry, or maybe would like to? How do you find yourself in Bitcoin professionally?
Well, there are like several ways. The best way, in my opinion, is if you can develop a product or a service that's related to Bitcoin, and then you create it in a way where you can run this loop over and over, and you get feedback and you get improvement. So this is what, again, someone like Coinbase has done. That's really over a period of 12 years. What you're essentially doing is, Brian Armstrong actually has a great interviews where he talks about startup and how in startup, initially, all you need is energy. And you need that energy to keep pivoting until you hit it. And for them, they develop like,
so the game of iteration, basically.
Yes, because they tried all the terrible things. Like they're going to build a wallet, and then they're going to sell Bitcoin over email, and then
just keep iterating.
Yes, what happened for them, they developed a wallet, and then they were like, install our Bitcoin wallet. And people were like, okay, I install a wallet, and how do I get Bitcoin?
Right.
And they were like, well, you have your Bitcoin. Like, no.
Now we'll sell them Bitcoin.
And they started selling, and they like put at the end like 3% fee. People were buying it.
Was Coinbase like the first online? No, it wasn't the first online Bitcoin.
BitInstant with Charlie Schramm. That's where Winkle was brothers invested in him.
But you had to like call on the phone to buy your Bitcoin, and it wasn't like an online front end experience.
Yeah. And then Charlie like blew that venture, and then there was like conflict where Winklevosses go the full. Okay, we're gonna do an exchange, and they do an exchange like a Gemini.
Most important, yeah.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is you gotta develop that product or service, and then you start running the loop. And it's like, okay, no one is interested. Like you're not getting really genuine feedback in terms of like economics.
What would you say, you know, for somebody who maybe isn't a developer? I think many folks watching the show probably are.
Yeah,
a little bit technical. But if you're not a dev, then
like whatever you are, like you need to figure out what is that product or service,
right?
And
What does it do?
Yeah, what does it do, and then what is the feedback that you're getting, and if it's not at the level that it's supporting your efforts, you got to pivot, and then you pivot. There's like, oh, you know, this is words. Okay, pivot again, and pivot again, and this is what again. Brian Armstrong, if you watch some of his videos on startups, he explains it really well. You just need to have enough energy to keep doing that. And then people like run out of energy or
take breaks, pace yourself.
Take breaks. Yeah, pace yourself. But if you now start doing that and like it keeps happening, this is where my second proposal comes in.
Okay.
Is like, you then rather join other people.
That's right. Yeah.
For starting something and they're doing something with the way you like it.
Right. Find a vision you believe in of someone else and support it.
Exactly. And this is where
that's been my personal strategy for the past 3 years.
Well, people always come to me and say, oh, you were lucky. You know, you just did BTCPay Server, like it's a hit. Oh, you did Strike, it's a hit. Now I'm like,
but you chose, right? Is that what you're saying? It's like investing, actually, like deciding where to work, right? Deciding like who to work for and give your lifeblood energy is an investment. Pick the right one.
Yes, I like to say that I'm not motivated by tasks. I'm motivated by people. And that's what I saw in Nicholas. I saw that he really genuinely believes and delivers on his promise. And I knew BTCPay Server will be successful. Let me support that vision.
You're a founder first investor, right? Like you invest in founders, basically.
Yeah. And then with Zap, I followed Zap team for quite a while. Like me and the Mallers developed a relationship because with Chicago, there was this great meetup, Bob. There's like Bitcoin and open blockchain. The thing is, there was like the great crowd. Like Andreas Antonopoulos was coming to town in 2017. That was one of the components of my, like, why I wanted to start as a developer, because I went to this event that Hannah was organizing.
Oh, really?
And Andreas was there. Yeah. And,
wow.
So this is 2017, but you do that, and then you're like, okay, this person will be successful, but they will be more successful if, you know, from my side, I add this.
If I help them with X, Y, Z, that might be a weakness for them.
Yes, or they just want you around.
Right.
That was the thing. Like with Strike, I was pitched on Strike by Jack. It was like, Uncle, I know. He's the one that started the Uncle meme. He came and I was like, I want to turn open source project Zap that I have into Strike. Like, join me, help me do that.
So the options basically are come up with something that's worth building and start building and start team building around you, or join a team, which really is about relationship development.
Yeah, and it's like, it's also, you need to look at it from perspective. Does that team make you better? Because for a lot, because you always need your personal proof of work, and that's,
do they set you up to succeed?
Yes, do they set you up to succeed? Do they make you better? Or also, what happens? What people need to get better at is just focusing on themselves. And again, proof of work, extremely important term. You always got to stay focused on that. Then you see within the team. What happens for a lot of people, and this is a pattern in nature, when you start something with a team, like everyone is excited, you know, we're going to change the world, this and that. 4 years later, everyone hates everyone. Like, you betrayed me here, you did this, you did that.
Interesting point when we talk about relationships in the industry and finding the right team to work with. I mean, working with the wrong team can be incredibly toxic and problematic.
Yes, but what's happening is entropy. It's like your energy of you together is getting used. And this is where over time you need to see bigger and bigger economical returns. Like you need to see that market is validating whatever is your team effort. And then that's why also what happens with good teams is that they pivot together. They stay together. This is like where if you're like with long-term people for the long-term gain, for the long-term gains, BTC Inc. is a great example of that. Like that company pivoted so many times.
Yep.
But whatever happens.
But they have a unified team, right? Their team is solid.
It's like COVID happens. And hey, the first conference next year, like it's Bitcoin conference.
Yeah.
And it ends up being 2021. Amazing conference. Like this is where El Salvador legal tender happens. But again, what's important for people that are, like, oh, I joined this team, they drained me, they're like, oh, I was, wronged. Like that's how it happens, people. And this is why vesting in startups is usually 1 year cliff, 4-year vesting period, because by end of the 4 years, like again,
you're exhausted.
You're exhausted. Like you were promised this, then you didn't get it. Then you talk with that person. They're like, oh, no, you promised me this.
Right, the politics get wild.
You can't settle. Like that's also a big thing why I love to explain it with Lightning. The beauty of Lightning is like our relationship now, Isabel, you and me. Like we have a relationship and it's growing. Our Lightning channel is growing.
Our Lightning channel.
Yes. Yeah. But at a certain period of in time, we gotta settle. You will be like, oh, Rockstar, I did this. You should do this. I'm like, okay, but I don't think I should do this. And then it becomes like,
at some point, there's conflict always. Like,
yes,
yeah, and it's like, how do you settle it? How do you settle the conflict? Yeah,
exactly.
Is the key to life, actually, to the relationships, economic relationships, business relationships, personal relationships. Yeah, how do you settle conflict is key.
Yes, and it's like settle
Lightning has figured this out.
Yeah, you look at the craziness of the world now with financial sector. People can look into that. How much money is unsettled? Like money that can be settled, even if we want it. The U.S. has what, like 36, 37 trillion dollars in debt. Like that is it's a burden of not like settling. And they keep escaping that, but eventually we need to settle. And that's where really the conflicts explode. When you are in that position where you see, okay, it's actually more profitable that we go to war.
This is honestly is a perfect place to sort of wrap up this conversation, because I mean, I'm having an aha moment right now. We talk so much about permissionless exit and unilateral exit, I feel like, in the L2 space broadly, but really like what Lightning does by executing that, right, by making that a reality, is make settlement of conflict easy, basically, right? Like it's you just have any kind of financial conflict that could exist is just settled.
No third parties. Yeah, Lightning is a technology for peace.
That's a beautiful way to kind of summarize what Lightning is bringing to the table and kind of merge that conversation with some of these sort of deeper themes that we've covered today. So thank you so much for coming on. We should our relationship is going to continue to.
I'll be the first guest to join like 3 times. Yeah. Coming for you, Nifty. Thank you for the great podcast.
Perfect. Thank you.